My father was a straight up hustler. I think I probably got that from him. I just remember him saying one thing to me that stuck with me ever since. I think one time my toy or something I was playing with and it broke and I threw it in the trash, and he picked it up. And he said, "Why did you throw this out?" I said, "Oh, it's broken." He said, "No, it's not. You can fix it, You can fix anything. Anything can be fixed." That's what he told me. And I was like, and it just hit me. And then I started fixing stuff. My visions are always bigger than than my pockets and or things that I can handle. It's always like all over the place. I always come with oh, I have an idea. Oh my God, I just thought of something. She's like, "Oh my God, here we go again. Not again. Yeah.
Hey, this is a little side joke here, but I was telling Alex, when I look at your resume, you got your interest in robotics and automations and electric motorcycles and construction, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna give Han a new nickname. I'm gonna call him Husk. He's kind of a Han plus Elon Musk. Husk.
Yes. No, I don't know about that.
I was actually, how do you feel about that label? How do you feel about that comparison? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No. I mean, no, I don't. No way. That's I would not want that comparison whatsoever. I have not even close. All right. But but yeah, I was with a friend last night. He's from Canada. He invited me over to Montreal about a year ago. I forgot, like maybe more than a year ago, to speak at a Canadian Vietnamese embassy, government GDG discussion, and I was brought up, and he introduced me as the Tony Stark of Vietnam.
Oh, so that was Tony Stark.
Actually, I was we have some similarities that we both went to MIT. Tony Stark went to MIT as well, so I was like, that's a little closer, and it's fiction, so I don't mind that. Iron Man, Tony Stark is one of my heroes. So
hey, now let me ask you a question.
I like that comparison.
Is that background real right there? I'm looking at, or is it? Is that
it's my office, bro. Yeah.
All right, that's cool, man.
I was telling Alex that this was an old warehouse. Actually, we used to be a factory, and then we converted over to our office. When we first started this business or this company, my wife and I started this business, and we were working for a company for a few projects in Singapore. And then my wife comes to me and says, "Oh, we need to register a name for our business to sign contract." And I was like, "Whatever, I don't know." And she said, "Well, you do BIM." And we actually found an old factory that she rented. It was an old shoe factory, and we converted it into our office. And then she said that, you do BIM, and we're in the factory, just call it the BIM factory. I said, okay, cool. So then, but what's the catch is that after that, we have to find a factory to be in. So we moved on from that. We moved into a regular office just so that we can, be there and then renovate or built this place and then moved in here. So this used to be an ice factory. They used to make ice here.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, not anymore. But now, our office is in an old factory. So yeah.
So does that factory house multiple businesses or just that one?
No, just one business. One of my my main company, the BIM factory.
Got it.
Right. You gotta see Lam in the background. He has a helicopter escape route, like evil villain escape route.
It's a big fan right here.
Like a gigantic fan. It looks like a
big ass fan. I think they call that the big ass fan. There's a company here called the Big Ass Fan. Yeah, it's a real name. They make fans for factories. Yeah.
Whoa. It's a clever name. Yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with a tech genius, expect anything, right? Evil villain style escape route.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
And by the way, I'm stoked for this conversation. The idea for Viet Kieu Hustler has been something kind of floating around in my head for easily over a decade. And as you know, and as we shared, I'm coming up on 50 years. My family being in the States, and I thought it was a kind of a cool time to get this ball rolling. Right. Can you give us and I'm all about the story of the Viet Kieu story, being that our family were first generation American, came over right at the end. I think we were actually one of the last planes leaving, and we came here. My folks were young; they're in their early 20s. My dad had lost a leg, and he found himself with no community in America like there is now, not knowing the language, not knowing anything. And I watched him hustle, hence the word Viet Kieu Hustler for the podcast, and really do all kinds of different things. And I'll maybe share some of that some other time. But can you share your family story? Because we're all pretty much on the same boat, different years arriving in the States, but man, one heck of a common background there.
Yeah. No, thanks, man. First of all, man, I really appreciate it that you asked me to be on this. When you mentioned it to me and what you're doing and what you want to talk about, man, I was all for it. And if it wasn't for you, I don't think I would ever do anything like this. So I'm a very discreet, kind of like a very low key kind of person. So, but this is for you, I do anything pretty much, man.
Appreciate it, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And giving me a voice, I guess, in some respect, to say what's on my mind and stuff like that, and answering your questions, and to answer your question, I actually my parents are they were refugee. Actually, my father was a refugee. He went there and I was here. So I grew up in Da Nang with the grandparents. So I flew in on a plane when he got to the U.S. and did all the immigration paperwork, and then my sister and I flew to the U.S. and immigrated into California, Los Angeles, actually. So, but and you mentioned the idea of being a VK hustle, and I think that definition itself is my family. My father was straight up. I think he was a hustler, and he got into a lot of trouble for it. But I think that's, you mentioned your father, and you mentioned, I think that generation in itself is, it has that mentality, of you either do it or you die kind of mentality, my father was that has that mentality, and I think in some degree, I think I probably got that from him. Just kind of this sort of ability, or this sort of knack for just going out and do stuff for yourself and do stuff, that means something. I don't actually, I don't really know my father that well. I actually lived with him in totality 5 years, but in those 5 years, I just remember him saying one thing to me that stuck with me ever since, was that, I think one time my toy or something I was playing with and it broke and I threw it in the trash, and he picked it up and he said, "Why did you throw this out?" I said, "Oh, it's broken." He said, "No, it's not. You can fix it. You can fix anything. Anything can be fixed." And that's what he told me. And I was like, and it just hit me. And then I start fixing stuff. And then I said, you know what? If that thing break, I can fix it, And then I start getting curious, a lot of curiosity about everything. And then I think that was really important to me, that mindset of being able to fix anything or to do anything and to really take on anything, So I think that was what helps. And then, but I grew up a lot around my other family, my immediate family, and my uncle is the reason why I came back to Vietnam. He gave me that chance. I look up to him, and he was, if there's another hustler, he is definitely a hustler. He hustled his way, made his way all the way from the bottom to the top, all by himself. And I give him a lot of respect for that. And I look up to him for that. And, in some way, I want to emulate that sort of greediness and mentality as well, So, and my mom, she passed away when I was like almost 2, not even 2, here in Saigon. At that time it was called Saigon. But so just growing up with my grandparents. Yeah, gotcha. But so that's basically the backstory of what my family, the mentality. And as you know, my uncle sort of, became very successful, and made a lot of money, and was, well known, I guess, to some degree. and now he's kind of retired in California. And yeah, he helped me a lot over even during college and then after, and then in my professional career. I mean, we have a few patents, U.S. patents together, because he has, we have these great ideas, and we just put our thoughts in paper.
You and your uncle have the patents together? Oh,
yeah. We have like a few. So yeah.
Is he an engineer also, like yourself, engineering background?
No. He's a businessman. So he just worked his way up and in blood products. He did rare antibody or antigen blood products in China. Yeah.
Is there any chance your uncle, that one gentleman that took a company public? Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
I remember hearing about a Vietnamese gentleman that was involved in blood work type.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small world.
So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He's well. I mean, yeah. His name gets tossed around, and but yeah. Him and my father, and they're brothers, and yeah, just growing up, I remember they were just like very business sort of focused and oriented, and I think that's one of the reasons why drove my father away in some respects. So when Vietnam opened up, the embargo opened up for business back in the early 90s, my father was one of the first one that came back as well. He actually built one of the first laptops called the Saigon 300 in Vietnam.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Basically, at that time, there was really no manufacturing done. So, and then he was importing in sort of farm equipment and so forth as well for the first time.
So he was back in the late 90s, then. It was kind of the wild west.
It was like actually early 90s. Yeah, mid early 90s. It was like, wow. Yeah. So that's why we kind of, my sister and I kind of just grew up by ourselves. He's here in Vietnam doing his thing. So yeah, but yeah, he just kind of hustled his way into the business, into Vietnam, and just he did everything from like voiceover video editing to being a photographer, all the way to building equipment, importing equipment, and running running a motel. He was a GM for a motel in California.
Yeah, sounds like OG hustler, man. He did anything and everything.
Yeah. So it's like he's all over the place. Yeah.
So is that a common thing in your family? The old, be your own boss, be your own thing. I mean, is that where you got this from?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, at least for me, at least what I see from my perspective is that, I see that, and I see like, I mean, I worked in a corporate environment for a few years. And I just didn't like it, and I know I didn't like it, and I know that there was more to it, and then but I knew I needed it, right? I knew I needed that experience or that knowledge, but it's always in me, and then looking at my uncle and my dad and people around, I think it was like I was more, actually a good example is like my best friend in high school. He comes from a post office family. His father was a postman. His mom is a postwoman. She works at the post office, and then he became a postman, worked at the post office. So following the father's footsteps, or the family's footsteps, and so forth. And they're happy, and they're good. But I think. I always saw it the opposite. I was like, no, man, I would always want to do something completely different, or do something that is a little bit, much bigger than myself, kind of thing. So I always have this, my wife always makes fun of me. It's like my visions are always bigger than, than my pockets or things that I can handle. It's always like all over the place. I always come with, I have an idea. Oh my God, I just thought of something, she's like, oh my God, here we go again. Not again. And I do this to her constantly. And I think it just happens to be like that with just the way.
I think it's a common thing, man. When I went back to Vietnam, in 2008, the first thing you notice is that there's a bunch of small businesses everywhere. And if given the enough funds, it doesn't take much. You go up and down the street and you see the little banh mi lady, and the guy who's there's I think it's in the Vietnamese genes, right? To be your own boss, to be, as we say, Vietnamese, ông chủ, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And even the
Oh, yeah.
Vietnamese, man, when we came to America, right? The ones who could go to school went to school, but the vast majority also, as soon as they could save us some money, as soon as they knew some just communicative level English, right?
Yeah.
They started their own enterprise.
Yeah.
My folks were one, and I know a lot of other people who right into America. Didn't take them long, maybe a couple of years in, and they were able to save a little money here and there, and they opened up some kind of small business. And I find it interesting because there are different ethnic groups in America, Asian ethnic groups in America, and not to be biased, but I think the Vietnamese have been really good at small business and starting some type of enterprise on their own compared to other Asian ethnic groups. This is my observation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everybody's an entrepreneur in Vietnam. Everybody's selling something at the house or selling it on the street, or it's just it's in the culture. It's not really in the personality or anything. It's part of. That's how you live. You have to be a boss. You have to do your own thing. And it's weird, being in a communist country and having, I don't know, I mean, having that kind of mentality, I guess, right? Because
I remember first time I was in Saigon, not to make it political, right? But also as a person coming from the West, going to a communist country, I was expecting, I don't know, streets being completely dead, right? And I remember thinking the first time I walked down a street, thinking I've never seen such a capitalist country, right? Everybody's selling, everybody's building, everybody's an entrepreneur, everybody's trying to rise through the social upwards. So to a degree that you don't see in the West, you don't see it in Scandinavia, where I come from. So
I think
I think this mentality is completely different, and I felt it when I first came here, and I created. So we were one of the first one that we have a fab lab here, which is fabrication laboratory that was started at MIT. So the technical community here created a fab lab, and I always thought that was such a great idea, a great thing, because cultivating Vietnam sort of this sensibility of building things themselves, doing things themselves, I remember, like, when I was a kid, I remember looking outside in the backyard. I always see my uncle doing something, this is on my mom's side. But I always see, like, he would always fix everything. Like, so if something broke and something fall down, he would just put it back up, and he would just, like, he would patch things up, doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like everybody, like, lives to make stuff and do all kinds of stuff. And then I figured that, oh man, it would be a great sort of place to nurture and then try to really cultivate this making ability of people. Just like, I'm sure people here would have so many great ideas and so many sort of things that they want to do, but they don't have the necessary sort of channels or ways or support to do it, so I think it's in the Vietnamese sort of blood to always do something and be very not creative, but very flexible with everything they have, and fixing stuff, so that's why Vietnam is very good at copying everything,
I gotta interrupt you there, man. Living here in Scandinavia, right? My wife is Danish, and so I've called Denmark home for the past 5 years. Here, they're big, and this also from living in Europe, right? They're big on renewal and recycling of things. And so I would go with my father-in-law all the time to these the recycling centers here in Denmark. And you know what? And the first thing that I think every time I go, because they're throwing away perfectly usable bikes and stoves and this and that. I'm thinking, man, if this were Vietnam, that shit would not sit there for a minute. Somebody would come by, lug it off in their little Honda scooter, take it home, tinker with it and fix it. I mean, they throw away completely. In my opinion, it's such a I don't want to say wasteful, are just products that I know, man, there's no way that shit would sit there in Vietnam, that somebody, there'd be a line of people every day showing up 6 o'clock in the morning to grab shit that they can take back home and fix up and resell or use themselves. So it's a
no, absolutely.
I think,
that was the thing.
Sorry.
That was the thing that I mentioned to you, what my father said to me, you know, when I threw away that car, that toy. I forgot what it was. That I threw away, but he picked it up and he said, what are you doing? You know, you can fix it. So I think that right there shows you the mentality of a Vietnamese, you know. And I'm not saying only Vietnamese, but I'm just saying, you know, it's being Vietnamese and it just happens to have that sort of, you know, mindset. So yeah, absolutely.
I think there are a couple of reasons also. I mean, if you compare it to some place like Denmark, you know, where I of course live myself, right? One reason is that we've been, you know, it's been a wealthy country for too long, right? Sure. People are sort of forgetting what it feels like to not live in a post-material lifestyle, to not have a post-material life. And then another thing, you know, I'm a history nerd myself, especially war history, right? You look at these different cultures around the world and you look at different wars and, you know, then they lose, then they win. And then you look at the Vietnamese people and you think like, you know, you study, you know, war upon war upon war and you think, Jesus Christ, these people are survivors, right? There's like no matter who comes around to invade or colonize them, they just end up literally beating the crap out.
It's almost impossible,
And with creativity, right? Like you know, if they don't have anything, they'll just figure out a way to beat people, right? And they'll just do it for as long as it takes until they wear out their enemies. So that was kind of my history take also on maybe one of the reasons why this is the case for the Vietnamese culture, right? I mean, the country is not wealthy now, and at least has not seen very much wealth for very long. And then at the same time, it's just a culture used to having to survive all the time with very little means.
Yeah, I mean that's just I think that's natural, right? For not civilization, but for like, you know, countries to go through these curves, right? And Vietnam is on its way, so it's doing this, you know. So eventually it'll get to a point where, you know, it'll plateau. But no, for sure. It's that drive, that hunger, and you can feel it. Every time I meet somebody that comes here and they want to do business or they want to do something here, or they come here to check it out, and they always say it about that, you know, that energy, or there's so much energy here. And, you know, it's sometimes you being, you know, living here, you don't really, I mean, I don't really know, really, I don't really understand it, or I don't really see that. But I mean, I can sense it. I guess you can sense it, that it's everybody is like, you know, because everything is so new. Everything is like not new in the sense that it's the way it looks and stuff like that, but new in a way that, you know, that we've never experienced this before, you know. There's never been this sort of like, oh, you know, we didn't have this before. So, you know, but that's why being a Viet Kieu, you know, a VK, you just kind of take some of those things for granted from the West, you know, because you've seen it. And you come here and you wonder, why don't they have that? You know, and I think a lot of that gives opportunity to the VK to come here and to able to bring that that they experience, and to bring into a country that, you know, might need that experience. So I think
walk us through your motivations, your reasons for coming back in 2008.
I mean, I came back mainly to do develop projects, real estate, and properties and so forth. And I just remember working on these projects, and it was just a mess. It was just unorganized. Everybody's just like, they don't even know what a schedule is. You know, you have a schedule. I came from New York before I came to Vietnam. I worked in New York City in one of the biggest contractor in the Eastern United States at the time. And you know, you do not mess with the schedule in New York. You know, you have a schedule, and then you got to meet that. If you don't meet that, you're gonna get screwed. You know, you're not gonna get paid, or you're pretty much out of business. But when I got to Vietnam, and, you know, I would sit with contractors and designers, whatever, local companies, and I was like, this is your schedule. We're about 3 weeks behind. What happened? And they're like, it's okay. It's okay. You know, they have this one word that they always use, like it's thông cảm. They think that that's a get out of jail. card. They always pull that card, and I didn't understand. I was like, what are you talking about? Then you're not gonna get paid and stuff like that. But they're like, it doesn't matter, whatever. There's the contract and the schedule didn't really matter. So I didn't understand that, and it was really frustrating.
You got to translate that to Alex, though. I don't think he knows what that means.
I don't even know what it means either. It's the Vietnamese word is called "thông cảm." It means like, oh, forgive me, I guess. Excuse, like, oh, don't mind it.
Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. Or like, not really that, but like, it's like, it's okay. It's like one of those words that they do something wrong on purpose. They would boom, like hit you or whatever, and they're like, oh, it's okay. Or like, don't worry about it. It's like they think they say that everything is okay. Everything is fine. I remember, staff or people that I work with and just Vietnamese is always like they screw something up and then they just pull that card and they think like, so I said it, so I'm good now. You don't have to be mad at me anymore. So it's like,
it's 2024, man, and they still use that card, by the way.
I don't know, actually. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really heard it in a while, or I'm not in that sort of environment anymore.
Yeah.
It's I think the environment here in Vietnam is mature. Like in just the last, I would say 5-10 years, it's completely different.
What do you attribute that change to?
I think it's just being open to different, just being more open to the rest of the world, and having people come here and sharing that sort of differences, and then just the media, the social media aspect of it. My 2 young kids were born in France. They went to Vietnam immediately once they got the U.S. passport. You get the U.S. passport much faster in France than you get the French passport. And you're born in France. So they get their U.S. passport and they would go to Vietnam. But growing up, they didn't speak anything other than English. So it's influence, and growing with YouTube. I think just the connectivity of the rest of the world contribute to, in the last 10 years, I say, contribute to this sort of mentality shift in the Vietnamese people. And being a young country, a young nation, it's easier to adapt and easier to understand. That Western or international mentality. So I think
straight, but your children, they have triple citizenship, or you said
no, they just have 2. They just have French and American. Yeah, they don't have Vietnamese. They just live here. So yeah.
All right.
Going back to what you said a moment ago about adaptability. Mm-hmm. I remember in 2008, when I had just gotten back and I was studying the demographics of Vietnam. At that time, I think 50% or roughly 50% of the population was 25 and under. And so, and it's obviously changed some, but, when I hear that, the first thing that came to mind was, these people are young. They're much more open-minded. They're much more flexible. They're much more agile. And, they don't carry the baggage of the older generation with the war and so forth. And so everything is new and everything is interesting. And when cell phones started to get, mobile phones started to get more popular, I remember, just thinking how impressed I was with the young generation, their ability to learn, to access, to try different technologies. I think definitely that plays a lot of part in how the current generation is, and especially with social media and so forth. Just they're picking up bits and pieces of best practices worldwide.
Right.
I remember even this is also something that I always, and I've told Alex about this a lot of times. You walk around the hams, the little alleyways of Saigon, and there are thousands of these hams, right? You go around on a Saturday morning, and what you're going to find often than not is some house or some apartment, or not a house. And usually you'll see 10, 15 kids kind of crammed in like sardines, studying English on a Saturday morning. My son here, he lived in Vietnam for the first 2 years, but he's 6 now. He's grown up here in Denmark, and his school is actually, they're complaining. The parents are complaining. They want more playtime. So you have a completely different focus on education and excelling. I remember when I was in Vietnam at that time, there's a growing community of young people that spoke, pretty good English. And I remember that from 2008 and 2018, just within a 10-year period, just the amount of young people who had an excellent command of the language impressed the shit out of me. Well, I would meet them out in the mall, and they would come up and talk to my wife and myself, and I didn't think they were local.
Yeah.
They spoke, they sounded, their pronunciation was excellent.
Yeah.
I think it's just a lot can happen within a 5 or 10 year period, and I think Vietnam is a great example of globalization, of realizing that they want to participate in the global economy. Not just the parents saying, "Hey kids, you got to go learn English, it's important." Them themselves being open like a sponge, to take in information and in different things around the world. I've been very impressed by that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the Vietnamese, they have that, they have that in them. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to help me, because I know your background is in design. When you came back to Vietnam, what was the attitude about some of the design ideas that you brought back that you wanted to introduce to the market?
No, I mean, I came from the design background, and I mean, it was rough. There's only a handful of really, thoughtful, in my opinion, this is just purely my opinion, thoughtful sort of design, buildings and places. But the rest are just, there's just like, there's never, in my opinion, they just never thought about the functionality and the use of, of the space, or how to really properly design anything. In all honesty, there's no sense of creativity in a way that, and even, with the respect to sort of how it, how it feels and stuff like that. So, I mean, we look at it, we as my team, the design team, back in those days, was to really try to, I guess, in like everybody else, just try to bring back and implement or push, the design that we know, that we think, works in the other parts of the world. Maybe it will work here, and I think in some way that could be good, and it could also be could also have an adverse effect, meaning that sometimes they're used to a certain way, and if you bring in a new sort of approach, then it doesn't, it might not work in this type of environment, or that the material, it doesn't work with this type of weather, or just the functionality of that space doesn't really work well with what they're using, if how they're using it, and so forth. So, but I think in some way, so one of the good example that I can, because I'm trying to think of an example, is we did this restaurant for a couple of friends, and at that time there was a big sort of in the West, in California and New York, there was a big sort of this urban industrial movement, coffee shop, the Starbucks, the coffee shop being very industrial, and restaurants and so forth. And I remember trying to recreate that here. And we have a friend, they wanted to create that type of restaurant. And they gave it to a local Vietnamese designer. And, a local Vietnamese designer, they've never been to a space like that. You can look at pictures all you want. You can look at examples. Pinterest is like one of the best tools, right, for a designer. But it doesn't do anything for you without the experience of being in that space, and how it really looks with the lights on and off is different, right? Or the type of lights are different, or the just being in that space is different than looking at that space in the picture. So I remember looking at it, and then I remember him coming to me and show me and say, "Hey, can you look at this design?" I said, "Sure." I looked at it, and it looks very, because they think like this industrial, rustic kind of look. So it's got to be a lot of brick. It's got to be an exposed brick. There'll be a lot of, lighting, industrial kind of lights hanging from the ceiling kind of thing. But it's because what they know or what they could find is like, this really fake brick. There's like almost like a wallpaper brick. So it looks like it's like a pink instead of a red color, it looks really bad. And then the lights are like this, looking like medieval kind of chandelier kind of look, so it looks like a castle. It looks like, it has nothing of that sort of that quality, or that what he's looking for. He's like, yeah, this is, I don't know, this looks like crap or whatever. And then I remember just taking it on and then redesign it for him and redesign it for them. And then we try our best to get it the right look and feel, and it was one of the first one, I mean, that I know of at that time, of this industrial sort of rustic sort of restaurant in Vietnam. And I just remember also telling the contractor the way that we're supposed to do it. I remember being at the site and telling him, no, do it like this. It's just this. It's simple. That's it. That's all you have to do. But because it's so simple, he wants to do more. He's like, no. I can do it better. No, I'm gonna do it like this. It's like, no, don't do 10 times like that. I just want one. Just go like that. And he's like, no, this is better. And I'll be like, oh my God, it's just crazy. It's like, so that's where it gets to. It's like that translation of thoughts and idea. It gets out of hand. But I mean, as I mean, I don't know, but as a designer, you always thought like, being simple, simplicity is the way at which you can express the most. Sometimes it's hard to be simple than it is to be just complicated, So that's what makes Apple works, right? Apple products, when they came out, that was so hard to do. It's so easy to put a keyboard on everything, right? But for it to not have a keyboard, holy crap, that's hard.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the way genius manifests itself in simplicity, right?
Yeah.
But that I have drawing a parallel to building Vietnam's first electric motorcycle company. Have you experienced some of the same challenges in relation to that? In terms of how people, to what degree are people willing to accept this idea or accept your vision or accept the way that this is to be designed, right? So what are some of the challenges, and are they the same as the ones that you just described there?
Yes, in some respect. But I think that we don't, I mean, so I started this, I co-founded this company with my partner about almost 2 years ago, and we've been working on it. We just launched our first production model last month. So this is new. This is something very new. So I would have to say the challenges we don't know yet, right? We don't know it yet. We created a product based on the community that we know, right? The riding community that my partner is associated with. And knowing what they like, knowing what they want, knowing what we can, what should be in an electric motorcycle. So creating this product was really a testament or this idea of creating something that we think would be a good a product fit for the local Vietnamese, with the price point, with the design, and just the overall technical aspect of the specification of the motorcycle. And so based on our community, based on what we do, and based on the things that we assume in some respect, then we created it. So now, then the challenge comes is to see how people respond to it. So we have close to 60 orders in 1 month, pre-orders so far, and we have a goal, we have a target that we wanted to reach with the initial sort of first batch. And to be able to get to that point, I think it's already sort of somewhat in some way it's proven that there are people out there that wants this. Granted that they are within our community, we haven't really opened up the channels and really advertise this as as much as we think we can. But right now it's just going through the close friends and community channels, and and getting some positive response from it. But I think the acceptance of looking investing into something that is unique, that is different. I think it's starting, in my opinion, it's starting to to be, it's starting to make sense to Vietnamese. The idea is starting to make sense. It didn't make sense before, Vietnamese, I think in the past, myself included, I mean, coming here, you like things that you like things that are just you're used to, if you pick up something and it's different, you're like, how does this work? So that confusion, and that without expecting like, what if it does this kind of thing? So but if you don't have that mindset, you're just like, I don't know how to work this thing, or I don't know what is this thing. Then people are turned off by that. But I think right now, in this sort of this time, I think the Vietnamese people are starting to understand and appreciate more interesting and quality type of brands and products. As a consumer, a lot of Vietnamese who have disposable income are traveling and shopping outside Vietnam and all over, and buying brand names. You have generation, or you have people that buy the fake brands, obviously, but the one that has income or that are professional and that are working, they're not buying fake brands, they're buying the real stuff. And I always have this joke with my designers, like, my staff have a better phone than I do. I have a Samsung 22. It's like 4 years old, 3 years old, something like that. And everybody, my staff has brand new iPhones. It's like costs twice as much as my phone, and they appreciate that, they appreciate the quality. And we saw that as something that's sort of starting to change. And we said, bring in a premium product that focus on design and, the technology, the technical aspect of it. I think it would be the right time. And let's see if that works out.
We spoke before, and you mentioned that this is a completely different category of product. And can you give the listeners some background on that? Because I remember you saying that you had spent quite a bit of money for the paperwork, the licensing, and because again, you're selling a new category of product in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's a new segment in Vietnam that they don't really have. I mean, a motorcycle. So they have different levels of in gasoline motorcycles. There's this. It's calculated by cc. A cubic cylinder engine, right? So then the number of cc is categorized, the level of the motorcycle. The faster it goes, the bigger the engine, and so forth. But in electric motorcycles, you don't have that. You have battery. So we measure by kilowatt hour, the size of the battery, and how the motor responds to that battery, how it uses that battery, and then how efficient it is to use the input of the battery, the power of the battery. So it doesn't, it's a completely different criteria. So Vietnam, they don't really have that yet. So I remember when we started this company, we were researching and we asked them, and they're like, yeah, we don't have, you would have to apply for a whole new, we would have to start creating a category for it, from the Ministry of Transportation, because it doesn't exist. So then they told us, they said, we're going to include an electric bicycle and a scooter. That would be, you combine the two, and that would be electric motorcycles. Like, what? So like, okay, well, let's just take this one thing at a time. And then we're like, okay, so we have to apply for it. Yeah. So then, but what it means is that we have to start production, and most of the application and the approval process go through the paperwork of the factories that produces it, and the quality assurance of the product and how it's made and stuff like that, and then test riding it and stuff through testing. But yeah, so that's something that we have to do, and something that's kind of doesn't exist. So, but I think this company called Dat Bike launched a couple years ago or a while back, and they are they started doing electric motorcycle, kind of like a dirt bike look. But now they have abandoned that design and that concept. Now they're just building scooters. I think they started that process. So
someone had asked about me when I mentioned that we were going to have you as a guest. What the difference between your product and their product was. And, so,
well, I mean, yeah, I think is we as because the founders, we are mainly designers. We're all designers. So I think that the aesthetic look and feel of it is something that is very unique. Is very, I think it's quite important when you are, because it's like buying a car. I guess if you can relate, right? You buy a car and you drive it around, but and you show up your car and you show off, your status. And, I get that feeling when I'm riding around the prototype around town. I'm riding it around illegally, but I ride it around and people are like, you always get that. Everybody come by this, everybody see you drive with it. They're like always having that weird look and they always have the intrigue, because they don't see that product they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So I think that is what makes us the design aspect of it. In terms of the technology, there's a lot of motorcycles out there that has the same or better technology, meaning motors and suspensions and battery and so forth, right? But I think how you put it together and how you organize it and how you design it and how you make people feel when they're on it is what make our product different.
How many iterations of the product that you have to go through before you set it on the current product?
I'm sorry. What was that?
I'm just wondering how many iterations, because you're very focused on design and comfort, and there's a lot of moving pieces there, right? So I would assume
in terms of we created a concept prototype first. That was a couple years ago, and that went through, I don't know, I remember he was telling me it went through several iterations, but this prototype production that we created, I think it went through a lot. I don't remember. You would have to ask him that, or I would have to ask him that. But every component of the bike went through different iterations. You know what I mean? So it's not just the bike itself, but just this one connection of the wheel, for example. The or the placement of the suspension of the shocks in the back and how much it changed from in terms of angles and in terms of degree of difficulty and or the degree of comfort and so forth. So it's I think it's I would say hundreds of iterations.
Whoa.
When you design something like this. Usually, when you, from my research, when you design a new product, an automotive, a car, for example, from pens and from paper and pencil all the way to a prototype, it usually take about 3.5 years,
wow.
Right?
Wow.
But a motorcycle is less complicated. So what I found was that it would take about 2.5 years for a motorcycle. So that's kind of where we took us like a year, a little bit over a year to build one, because we already built an electric motorcycle, the concept one, so that helped. I think that took him about a year, less than a year, to put together. It's not refined at all. It's just a concept, meaning that it just slapped together. It just like put together. There's still little gaps here and there, but it's just screwed on. But the design overall look of it is done, and it looks pretty badass. But it wasn't made for production and so forth. So when you design something for production, it's completely a different mindset or a different approach to to how you do it. So that's why it takes longer. So our production prototype took about a year to be completed. Yeah. So, in some respect, we're still, because we're testing it and we're still sort of, running on the road and, measuring the performance of it. And still some changes that we're still making. We just changed the handlebars the other day, as an example. So yeah, there's still updates and changes that we're doing right now.
So in many Western countries, in the US and in Scandinavia as well, where electric vehicles have been around for a long time, right? It's still a pretty divisive issue. There are some groups who say I'm never gonna drive anything electric, and then there are other groups who say that this is the future. So who's your target audience? Is it mostly young people, or mostly like how prepared and accepting are people towards just the idea of driving an electric motorcycle?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's the younger generation. We get a lot of, the older generation, like, my age, our age, we are more tactile in a way that, we like that sound. And I still appreciate that sound, the sound of the motorcycle when it's unique in its own way. So when I realized that this is silent, it's like, oh, it's kind of weird. But I think the younger generation more appreciate that, and that's kind of like our target audience, that they wanted something that's different from the other generation, and they will find that because we grew up with this sound and this sort of different mindset, I think you get attracted more to that. But if you don't, then you don't know, and then you will adapt to the other sensibility. The silent is going to be better. And one other thing that that sort of drives us is that reducing sort of like pollution. And I think that was one of the main sort of, is a main reason for electric vehicle to exist, is to reduce the carbon emission, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's so you get like 10 guys together, and then you would get 5 or maybe more and say, no, I like to destroy environment. I like the sound of it because I'm a man, But the other one's like, oh, no, I think it's better for the environment. It's better for my kids, and you get some that I feel like that, that feel about being protective of the environment and so forth. So
I have a more practical reason. Living in Vietnam is awesome. I love it. Look forward to doing it again one day. But one of the things I never liked, never got used to, and was just simply the fact that you can jump on your bike, go down one block, so 30-second drive, and you're already smelling exhaust. And so one of my biggest gripe about Vietnam is just the amount of pollution, smoke, and driving behind a bus, and the exhaust is flying in your face. And so if the push towards electrification, in terms of transportation in Vietnam, accelerates, I'm all for it. All right. So I like the sound, I like tactile feedback of a traditional motorcycle, but I'm willing to trade that if I can get a cleaner environment, and I don't have to change my 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting with regards to. Oh, sorry, Han. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to add something about the sound thing, right? Because I remember reading somewhere that Tesla, with one of its models, they did an experiment where they added the opportunity for people to turn on an artificial engine sound, right, when the car was driving, when it was backing, and so forth. And I remember reading that they apparently did a study on different target groups, demographic groups, whether they like this, and a significant proportion of the young people answered that they didn't like this, and the reason was that it was false, right? It was artificial, it was non-authentic. So they rather, even though many young people might still like the sound of an engine, it's kind of a weird feel that you turn it on, artificially. They would rather have something that's real than something that sounds like something it isn't, right? So that's also kind of a. So we're more willing to accept that the sound is not there, because that's just the name of the game when you're dealing with an electric vehicle. Right?
Sure.
It's just.
I mean, there's sound. There's a sound to it. It's just a different sound. It's a hissing sound.
Right.
It's a sound. It's not a But yeah, there's. But I mean, we talk about pollution. Noise is a big part of it. It's a big proponent of pollution, and you can hear. I had a friend who came from China, and was telling me, man, it was crazy. It was so quiet, because China is like 80% electric cars now. They have no more. They pretty much run on electric now.
Right.
So he says that he was standing in the street, and it's just everything was so quiet, and it was weird. And I was like, wow, that's kind of that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's you know, that's if you have less noise, and you know, it's also mentally, I guess, you know, emotionally better for you, you know, for your mind space, you know, for your head space to have. Because right now, I mean, the other day when I was sitting there with my actually a couple months ago when I was sitting outside with my co-founders, and we're sitting there, and then you hear a bunch of motorcycle guys, and you know, drive up, and it's just so loud, and we're like, oh my god, you know, and we like motorcycle, they're motorcycle riders, you know, but then we realize, oh my god, that's so painful, you know, it's kind of annoying all of a sudden now, you know, and is yeah, it's just so loud, and it's so distracting, and it's yeah, so, and we're like, yeah, I don't, we're okay with not having that anymore, you know.
Yeah, you know, something just came to mind. I mean, you know, we have the charging station network, you know, throughout the U.S. and here in Scandinavia. Is that going to be an issue? Is that being built out in Vietnam right now?
Yeah. I mean, for cars, it is, in my opinion. But motorcycle, the battery is much smaller. It's tiny compared to a car battery, right? Yep. So charging it's a little bit more, you know, flexible, meaning that you just need a cord that's long enough to find an outlet, any outlet, right? And then you just plug it there. And you know, hopefully right now, but the infrastructure is definitely not there. We're looking to support that, you know, find ways to which we can, you know, grow that, you know, working with local sort of businesses and local or international sort of battery station suppliers to come in and you know and electrify the infrastructure here. But yeah, that's problematic. But I mean, VinFast want to be in the electric automobile here, a company from Vietnam that they make their cars here. And you know, all their malls, and it's good that they are also real estate developers. They're also they're you know they do everything. So they have malls at where they convert the entire parking lot into, you know, charging stations for their cars, and they do real estate, they do residential as well, the Vin Group, and you know, the Vin Homes. All their parking has charging stations now, so they make that, you know, for their cars. So I mean, there's some, you know, possibilities that, you know, if you can pay to use their you know, their charging station, then yeah, you use one of those DC fast charge, you can charge up our bikes in just 45 minutes from zero to empty to full, you know.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah. But if you use a regular outlet, it's like 5-6 hours, you know. You can plug it in when you got to the office, you plug it in, and then by the time you leave, should be full, you know.
What's the range and also cost?
I mean, it's for city riding, so it's like 180 kilometers range. You know, you can, so it's pretty decent. And then the cost, well, we have two sort of models. One is being just premium products with the brakes, the different types of brakes and different types of suspension, and the quality, the finish. We call it the Founders Edition, and that one is about 8,500 US, 8,500 US. And then our slightly lower model with a different finish and with more standard brakes and suspension is about 7,500 US dollars.
Very curious here. Of the 60 that have been pre-ordered, how many are in the premium model and the
Founders Edition, which is, we're only building 50 of those. We have about 9 left. Yeah, so it's like 30, 40, 41. And then the other signature, we just started. So once that's done, everybody would have to switch over to the lower model. Yeah, not any, you know, not the, because we're only building 50 of these Founders Editions. The 50 of the pricier point, the more costly model.
So, you know, a technical question, right? Because I'm obviously neither a tech expert nor a designer myself, but I know from just remembering walking around in Saigon or in Vietnam in general that the weather compared to many other places in the world can be quite, I wouldn't call it extreme, but, you know, you reach a certain degree of heat, certain degree of moist, you know, and then suddenly when it starts raining, it rains like, as a Dane, I've never seen anything like it, right? Is there anything, and the amount of dust and whatnot, is there anything here design-wise that did you run into any problems with this? Have you added something special to, I don't know, protect the battery from the amount of dust in the air or the moisture? I mean, can you just transfer it from technology that's used anywhere else or design and then just use that in Vietnam?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I mean, because it's an electric motor or electric bike, and the battery casing and so forth, you can actually make it waterproof, the IP67,
right.
So it's actually better than a traditional, what they call the internal combustion engine, the ICE bike or gasoline bikes, right? So there's already that advantage. That comes with electric motorcycle. And then the other one is that because I think it's just the adaptability of the people here. I mean, they've been riding motorbikes forever, even though no matter how hot it is, they cover themselves from top to bottom. And, Vietnamese been wearing face masks way before COVID, it's like, it's funny when COVID came along and everybody had to wear a face mask. And I just remember seeing like, but everybody here already wear a face mask. You look out on the street right now, you go outside, everybody has a face mask on because that's just, to block pollution. And people are used to that already. So, and they wear sweaters and it's like, it's like 100 degrees outside, and yet they're wearing thick knitted sweaters, like hoodie sweaters, and cover themselves with gloves and everything, just mainly to protect them from the sun. But their bodies and they adapt to their environment. And so I don't think there's any issues with that. And we didn't really, there's really nothing that we can consider more given the fact that they already kind of are used to that. But yeah, I think we do get a lot of rain. It rains 6 months of the year here. And there's a lot of flooding, especially in my neighborhood, in where we are. Because for whatever reason, they decided to build this entire city, the most expensive part of town in the entire country, in my opinion, and they built it below sea level. So it floods when it just start, you just get a little drizzle of rain, it start flooding. Yeah, there's I mean, I've sat on streets where just rivers. It's like, it's like just meters high river on the street. But I think that being an electric motorcycle, I think it helped because then you can, the only thing you really need to protect is the control panel that talks to the components, talks to the battery, talks to the motor, talks to everything else. So I think that's the only thing that you do really, really need to protect. But everything else is waterproof. So you can actually ride this thing. I don't know if you've seen some of those electric cars that they just drive through just rivers, it's completely waterproof. So I think that it's a selling point, right, for Vietnam. So we're waiting for the day where, because my partner doesn't want to try it yet because we only have we built one prototype production so far. So we're using that to make sure that everything works. So I told him find a river, drive through it, and then capture it, and then show people that we can drive through it. But I don't know. What if it screw everything up? What if it breaks? Like we're not completely confident yet. But it's very doable. I mean, we have another one, we would do it right away. Just that we don't want to take that risk at the moment. But it's very capable of driving through rivers.
You just got to build the first amphibian motorcycle, right? Like it's like a transformer that can transform into a boat, and then you can take that idea and just go ahead.
Yeah.
Now you're doing a seed round, I think, to raise some capital for the first batch.
Yeah, we're about to open up a seed round right now. We're pretty much open for a seed round, and we're looking for investment into the for the continuation to basically build the pre-orders that we have, and since our company is already established, we already have momentum, we already have orders, and we have a product already. Yeah, so we're looking for investment to come in and help us to build the initial batch. Yeah.
How much are you looking for?
2.5 million. To get us going, to build that first. And then after that, our plan is to pretty much, it will sort of self-sustain once we get that initial, because the initial, the money is basically for to order the parts and making the mold for the frame, you know, and signing deals with the factories that we're working with, you know, the suppliers and so forth. So that's why it takes the initial chunk. But then once we get that batch off and then getting revenues from that batch, that itself could start feeding other, you know, the other batches that comes along. So yeah, I think it's—
How big is the team now?
In totality, if you don't count the founders, is about 12, 13. So a total of everybody is about 15, including us. Yeah.
Most are engineers, or what's the breakdown
Yeah,
of roles?
yeah. The biggest team is the engineer, software, hardware, and mechanical, manufacturing, fabrication, and so forth. And then the other ones are, you know, accounting and marketing, media, sales, etc. Yeah.
Right. How much of the actual putting together of the motorcycles done in Vietnam?
80%. The putting together is 100%. We assemble it here, but the motor, they don't make it in Vietnam. They make it in China. It's one of the best motors, because you know you measure the motor by how it responds and how what it does with the input of the battery, you know, and how fast it moves. So the motor is critical, and right now only China, well, the one that we find that is efficient and effective and costly as well, and I mean cost effectively, is from China, and then the other parts they're from Thailand, that we source, you know, which is the suspension and the brakes. Those things they don't really make in Vietnam as well.
Right.
The premium products, they make the cheaper Honda type of models, you know, but for these, you know, size motorcycle and so forth, this type of premium products, yeah, these ones they're made in Thailand. But of companies in Germany, you know, they're manufactured in Thailand and so forth. Yeah, our brakes comes from Italy, but I think that's also Thailand. They make in Thailand. Yeah.
What's going to be your? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We make it. I say everything, yeah, but we assemble everything, and everything else comes from Vietnam.
Got it. Got it. What's going to be your main marketing strategy to get the word out?
I mean, our team is working on it. We just finally, I mean, the last meeting we had, we just basically sort of determined the demographic and the people that we should target, because based on what we you know, what the pre-orders have taken so far. So I think, you know, we're still trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out what's the right channel to do it. Yeah, we're you know, we're still, you know, we're a baby that we're just barely learning how to crawl, you know. So in a segment in a market that is relatively new, and trying to you know, educate people. I've gone through this, you know, 10 years ago with this company that I'm sitting in right now. You know, we were one of the first BIM consulting company in Vietnam, and having to explain what that is. It was, you know, what we do and how we can help, you know. So I think that's the same challenge we're going through right now with the NUEN MOTO. Yeah.
You know, you know, we're going to have a different set of listeners to the podcast on motor, like yourself and me, and then a lot of young people too. What is you know, 40 current Han said a Han 20-year-old. What would you give him advice on?
Oh man, jeez. I would say, if I would give myself advice, I will. Man, that's a good question. I mean, the things that I know now, I would just basically say, you know, I mean, don't think you know everything. Don't think that you know, or that you can learn everything. You know, in a short period of time. Everything takes experience and time, and you have to. I mean, if I tell myself, you know, all the shit that I went through and all the things that I struggle with, it's okay, because you need that, you know, you appreciate that. I think that's something that I would tell myself. Don't worry about that, because it will pass. Because I remember being, you know, young and having gone through all this that I had to go through, it was like just like you just think it's the end, you just think it's that's it, it's over, you just think there's nothing, nothing good is gonna come out of it, But I tell myself that, man, that is what gonna set you apart. That's what makes you stronger, and that's what you need. So you want that. You don't want to avoid it. You want it. You want the struggle. So I think that's something I would tell myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is pretty cool. And aside from I'm very bullish on what you're doing, but I think you're also going to end up motivating a lot of young people. So I wanted to get your feedback on that. Vietnamese people don't lack in ambition for the most part. But sometimes they're over ambitious and also sometimes easily there goes that one earpiece, easily set back sometimes with initial failures or initial complications or challenges in their life. So I think if they came at it with a more long-term approach, like you mentioned, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to run into challenges. It's going to be part of the process, and it's a lot easier for young people to commit to something. And I guess one last question, because I know we have to end this soon. What is, and we're going to have to probably do a podcast in a year from now, just as a follow up and see where you guys are going. Big picture. Where do you see the company in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'd say in 3 years, I think we'll be in ASEAN. I want to start exporting this over to Indonesia, into Thailand, Philippines, etc. But the first 2 years, we're going to be mainly focusing in Vietnam. And then 5 years, hopefully we'll get global. I mean, we can reach the European markets. I think that will, once we pass the 3 to 5 year point, I think we're here to stay to some degree, unless we really fuck it up, right? Unless we really screw everything up. So then expand into the Western markets. I think this is a product that could be easily, sold over there. I was talking to an industry expert the other day, and he wrote an article on our design and our bike and said that it was a perfect product fit for the market. And we didn't, it was not a paid anything. We didn't even know. And he just wrote it. And I actually didn't even know who wrote it. It was just this one site. And it turns out that he messaged me, and then I ended up talking to him. It turns out that he wrote it. And then he explained to me why he wrote it was, you have something that I think the West wants, and, something that fits with the market and with the price point, with the specifications and so forth, the product fit. And I was like, wow, thank you, I appreciate that. And he's an industry actor. He's been everywhere in the world, and he works in Japan and for motorcycles, and he knows he knows the motorcycle industry. And for him to say that, I was like, motivates you, and now he sits on our advisory board, and he gives us a lot of directions and stuff, and advice. So I think it's I hope that's gonna be where we are in 3 to 5 years. Long answer, sorry.
Thanks, I appreciate it. One last question, and I know we talked in private, and you had mentioned that past year or two has been very tricky for the electric motorcycle industry around the world. A couple of big guys have closed shop. What can you take from that to do it differently with NUEN MOTO?
Yeah, no, I would say, I mean, obviously everything that they've done sets a foundation for us to learn from, right? And to really understand how they got to where they are, and then what happened when it fails. From what I understand, is most of these are basically mismanagement of finances, or it has a lot to do with investments, right? And the beliefs in the investor and so forth. So it has a lot to do with finance, around the world of finance. So I think that's something that we're now, having to be really careful with who we want to invest into our company. What do they believe? How long they're going to stick around? And do they have the funds to support us? Some company, they went defunct not because their product sucked, it's because they just couldn't, they didn't getting money from their investor. That's what's kind of sad about it. Or or that the founders or the management company or the executive team decided to grow the team, throw the company up to a certain point and say, you know what, I'm tired, I'm done, and screw the customers, and I'm just going to take the money and then call it a day, and file bankruptcy. So I think a lot of it is just learning from experience from them, and then try not to do that, or try to do something that, that will make it last, And I think in some respect, if you love what you're doing, you love the product, you believe in what you're doing, you believe in what you're trying to achieve, then that's all that matters. Even if it's just 1% of that belief, you think it's going to happen, then that's all you need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. I think we're coming up on the end.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Han, thank you so much for taking a bit over an hour out of your life to have this great conversation.
Oh man, I wish I can take out more, man. I love talking to you guys. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you guys opening the mic up for me. And one other thing I wanted to mention was that it's like I said, I'm honored that you guys asked me, and I'm very happy that I can share. There's a ton of people out there that I know that could the VK in Vietnam, that need to be told, that need to be talked about, and that need to share their experience. So there's a ton of people I'd love to introduce you guys to, and that we can explore. And having different diverse type of personalities and so forth on podcasts.
100%. Thank you, and thank you in advance for that. But we're very excited to get the Viet Kieu Hustle podcast moving, and quite honored that you took time out of your day to be our first guest.
No, man, I told you when you said this to me, I was so excited. I was like super excited, and I know I'm gonna make the time to talk to you. So anything for you, man.
Same, brother. All right, man.
Right.
Thanks for the time, and let's do this again.
Anything you need, let me know. All right, brother. Okay. Nice to meet you, Alex.
You too, Han. You too. Thank you so much. And let's talk in the future, and see you around.
Yes,
take care.
Absolutely. See ya. Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, see ya. Bye.